Hello, friends. Welcome to our podcast where we learn about different topics through stories. I'm Emma, your host. Today, we're going to talk about climate change. Climate change is the change in the weather of the Earth. It is caused by humans making the Earth warmer. Climate change affects everything and everyone on the planet. It is a big problem that we need to solve. But how can we learn more about climate change? One way is through stories. Stories can help us know, feel, and act. That's why we have a guest with us today. She is a storyteller and a teacher. She is Anna. Anna, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Emma. I'm happy to be here. I love stories and I love sharing them. I think stories are a great way to learn about climate change and to make a positive change. I'm ready to talk to you and your listeners.
Anna, let's start with a basic question. What is climate change and what causes it?
Sure, climate change is the change in the average weather patterns of the Earth over a long period of time. It is caused by many factors, but the main one is the increase of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Greenhouse gases are gases that trap heat and make the Earth warmer. Some of them are natural, like water vapor and carbon dioxide, but some of them are made by humans, like methane and nitrous oxide. When humans burn fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas, they release more greenhouse gases into the air. This makes the Earth's temperature rise, and this affects the climate in many ways. Let me tell you a story about how climate change affects the Arctic, the region around the North Pole. The Arctic is one of the coldest and most beautiful places on Earth. It is home to many animals like polar bears, seals, walruses, and whales. It is also home to some people, like the Inuit, who have lived there for thousands of years. The Inuit have a special relationship with the land, the sea, and the ice. They depend on them for food, clothing, shelter, and culture. They have a lot of knowledge and wisdom about the Arctic and its changes. But in the last few decades, the Arctic has been changing faster than ever before. The ice is melting, the sea level is rising, the weather is becoming more unpredictable, and the animals are losing their habitats. The Inuit are facing many challenges and risks because of these changes. They have to adapt to new conditions, find new ways to survive, and protect their culture and identity. Here is a quote from an Inuit elder, Sheila Cloutier, who is also a human rights and environmental activist. She says, "We are not just talking about polar bears and seals and penguins and ice. We are talking about the human face of climate change. We are talking about our children and grandchildren, who have the right to a healthy and secure future."
Anna, let's talk about another aspect of climate change. How does climate change affect the weather and the seasons?
Sure, climate change affects the weather and the seasons in many ways. It makes the weather more extreme and unpredictable. It can cause more heat waves, droughts, floods, storms, and wildfires. It can also change the timing and length of the seasons. Some places may have longer summers and shorter winters, while others may have the opposite. Some places may have more rain and snow, while others may have less. These changes can have a big impact on the environment, the animals, and the people. Canada is a very large and diverse country. It has many different landscapes, climates, and cultures. It also has 4 distinct seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. Each season has its own beauty, activities, and traditions. For example, in spring, people can enjoy the flowers, the birds, and the maple syrup. In summer, people can enjoy the lakes, the forests, and the festivals. In fall, people can enjoy the colors, the harvest, and the Thanksgiving. In winter, people can enjoy the snow, the ice, and the Christmas. Canadians love their seasons and celebrate them in many ways. But in the last few years, the seasons have been changing because of climate change. The seasons are becoming less predictable and more extreme. Here is a quote from a Canadian writer, Margaret Atwood, who is also a climate activist. She says, "We used to have spring, summer, fall, and winter. Now we have winter and summer, and in between we have a mud season when everything's flooded.
Anna, let's talk about another aspect of climate change. How does climate change affect the plants and the animals?
Sure, climate change affects the plants and the animals in many ways. It changes their habitats, their food sources, their behaviors, and their survival. Some plants and animals can adapt to the new conditions, but some cannot. Some plants and animals can move to other places, but some cannot. Some plants and animals can find new ways to live, but some cannot. Some plants and animals are endangered or extinct because of climate change. Let me tell you a story about how climate change affects the coral reefs, the colorful and diverse underwater ecosystems. Coral reefs are very important and beautiful. They are home to more than 25% of all marine life, like fish, crabs, turtles, and sharks. They are also important for people because they provide food, jobs, tourism, and protection from storms. They are also very sensitive to changes in the water, like temperature, acidity, and pollution. When the water gets too warm, too acidic, or too dirty, the corals get stressed and lose their color. This is called coral bleaching. When the corals bleach, they become weak and can die. When the corals die, the whole reef dies, and all the plants and animals that depend on it suffer. Climate change is making the water warmer, more acidic, and more polluted, and this is causing more and more coral bleaching and death. Here's a quote from a marine biologist of Hoey Goldberg, who is also a climate expert. He says, "We are rapidly losing the world's coral reefs. They are literally dissolving before our eyes. We have lost 50% of the world's coral reefs over the past 30 years. If current trends continue, we may lose another 50% by 2050.
Anna, let's talk about another aspect of climate change. How does climate change affect the people and the society?
Sure, climate change affects the people and the society in many ways. It affects their health, their livelihood, their culture, and their rights. Some people are more vulnerable and affected than others, like the poor, the women, the children, and the indigenous. Some people have to face more problems and risks, like hunger, disease, violence, and displacement. Some people have to make hard choices and changes, like migrating, adapting, or resisting. Some people are fighting for justice and solutions, like activists, scientists, and leaders. Let me tell you a story about how climate change affects the people and the society in Bangladesh, the country in the south of Asia. Bangladesh is a very small and crowded country. It has more than 160 million people living in an area smaller than the state of Iowa. It is also a very low and flat country. Most of it is less than 10 meters above sea level. It is also a very wet and fertile country. It has many rivers, lakes, and deltas. It is also a very poor and developing country. It has many challenges like poverty, inequality, corruption, and violence. It is also a very resilient and diverse country. It has many cultures, religions, languages, and traditions. It is also a very beautiful and rich country. It has many natural resources like fish, rice, and jute. But Bangladesh is also one of the most vulnerable and affected countries by climate change. Climate change is making the country hotter, wetter, and more extreme. It is causing more floods, droughts, cyclones, and salinity. It is also causing more sea level rise, erosion, and land loss. These changes are having a big impact on the people and the society of Bangladesh. They are affecting their food, water, health, education, and security. They are also affecting their culture, identity, and dignity. Here is a quote from a Bangladeshi woman, Taslima Begum, who is also a climate refugee. She says, "We had a good life in our village. We had a house, a farm, and a family. We grew rice, vegetables, and fruits. We had cows, chickens, and ducks. We celebrated festivals, weddings, and births. We were happy and proud. But then the water came and took everything away. The river flooded our land and washed away our crops. The sea rose and swallowed our house and our animals. The salt water spoiled our drinking water and our soil. We had nothing left. We had to leave our village and our home. We came to the city and lived in a slum. We had no work, no money, no food. We had no school, no health, no safety. We had no friends, no community, no respect. We had no hope, no future, no life.
Anna, let's talk about another aspect of climate change. How does climate change affect the economy and the development?
Sure, climate change affects the economy and the development in many ways. It affects the production, the trade, the income, and the growth of different sectors like agriculture, industry, and services. It also affects the costs, the benefits, the risks, and the opportunities of different activities like investment, innovation, and adaptation. It also affects the distribution, the equality, the justice, and the cooperation of different groups like countries, regions, and communities. Let me tell you a story about how climate change affects the economy and the development in Africa, the continent in the south of Europe. Africa is a very large and diverse continent. It has more than 50 countries and more than 1 billion people. It has many different landscapes, climates, and cultures. It also has many natural resources like minerals, oil, and wildlife. It also has many challenges like poverty, conflict, disease, and corruption. It also has many opportunities like democracy, education, technology, and entrepreneurship. But Africa is also one of the most vulnerable and affected continents by climate change. Climate change is making the continent hotter, drier, and more extreme. It is causing more droughts, famines, floods, and diseases. It is also causing more conflicts, migrations, and disasters. These changes are having a big impact on the economy and the development of Africa. They are affecting the productivity, the competitiveness, the resilience, and the sustainability of different sectors, like farming, mining, and tourism. They are also affecting the profitability, the efficiency, the innovation, and the diversification of different activities like trade, finance, and energy. They are also affecting the allocation, the fairness, the solidarity, and the integration of different groups like farmers, workers, and consumers. Here is a quote from an African economist, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who is also a climate leader. She says, "Climate change is not just an environmental issue. It is an economic issue. It is a development issue. It is a security issue. It is a human rights issue. It is a moral issue. It is an issue that affects us all, but especially the poor and the vulnerable. We need to act now, before it is too late."
Wow, Anna, thank you for your stories. You have taught us a lot about climate change. You have also made us care more about climate change and the planet. You have made us want to do something about it. Thank you, Anna, for being a great storyteller and a great guest.
Thank you, Emma, for having me on your podcast. It was a pleasure to be here. I hope you and your listeners liked my stories. I hope my stories made you more aware, more informed, more empathetic, and more inspired about climate change. Remember, stories can help us change the world. Keep reading and telling stories. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.
Thank you, Anna, and goodbye. And thank you, friends, for listening to our podcast today. We hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. We hope you will join us again next time, when we will learn about another topic through stories. Bye for now.